Alright, everyone out there in Mandolin Land, Mike Heading here. I've got another mandolin lesson for you today. A while back I did a lesson on two-finger mandolin chords, and those are really good to start for a beginner, just getting your fingers used to pushing down on the frets and, getting used to strumming. But really, to play full chords, you need 3 notes, because 2 notes don't actually technically make up a full chord. Those could be used in multiple different chords, that combination of 2 notes. So you really need the 3rd note to push you over the edge and get you to that final full chord. So that's what we're going to talk about in this lesson. I'm going to go over a couple of the basic 3-finger shapes and talk about a little bit of music theory on how to build these chords, where are we getting those 3 notes from, and again, a little bit of music theory in this case will go a long way. And it'll help you with a lot less to remember, and if you can remember a couple basic little music theory tips, you'll be able to find these chords, recall them, and eventually modify them to create your own chords as well. That'll be really cool. And if you're watching the preview of this lesson, you can head over to my website, MikeHeadingMusic.com. You can grab the full lesson. You'll get access to watch all the videos, and you can download the tabs and the practice tracks. Alright, here's the lesson for 3-finger mandolin chords. Alright, let's start going over these 3-finger chords for mandolin. So this is going to be kind of a combination of a little bit of music theory and then a little bit of memorization. So I want you to memorize the chords, and that's good practice, but I also want to give you a little bit of the theory behind it so you understand how we're building these chords. Because I think if you understand how the chords are built, it's a lot easier to modify them, it's a lot easier to remember them, and it's a lot easier to create your own chords eventually if you kind of know the building blocks. So a major chord and basically a basic chord is made up of 3 notes. So the notes come from the scale of the chord that you're playing. So let's start in the key of A, because I think that will be the easiest to start. And then I'll show you how to move it around to different keys. But basically, we have 3 notes of the scale that build the major chord. And some of this might be a little bit of review, but it's still good practice. So we have the 1, 3, and 5 notes of the scale. So if we played the scale, so if you have 1 is our root, in this case A, and then we go up to 3, that's our 3rd note of the scale, 4, 5. Okay, so if we take those 3 notes, 1, 3, 5, those are our building blocks of a basic major chord, okay? And other more advanced chords, you might modify one of those 3 notes, or you might add additional notes on top of it, like a 9th chord, or, more advanced jazz chords will sometimes have more than 3 notes, but they're still built on these foundational building blocks of the 3-note chords, okay? So remember, the 1, 3, 5 notes of any scale, you can take those and put them together, and you'll build a major chord for that scale. So if you're playing the A scale, the A major scale, and you take the 1, 3, and 5, and you find those anywhere on your neck and you play them, it's going to be a chord. So that's where I'm getting these notes from, remember, and that's really important, the 1, 3, and 5. And just repeat it. You can memorize A, C sharp, and E. That'd be good practice. Memorize the 1, 3, 5 in a bunch of different keys and chords you're playing. That'd also be really good practice, because the other benefit to knowing these 1, 3, and 5 notes, in addition to building your chords, that's where a lot of your melodies are going to reside. So especially if you're playing bluegrass, so you might start, on one of those notes, or I talk about this in other lessons. You can check out the lesson and create your own mandolin kickoffs I did. That will go into this in more detail. But basically, it makes sense once you think about it that the notes that build up the chord, obviously those notes are also going to sound very good as the melody, because those are building the blocks of the chord. It's basically kind of twice the value if you memorize the notes that build the chord, because you also know where to look for your melody notes. So the melody, especially in bluegrass and in most types of music, are going to reside on one of those chord tones, so the notes that build up the chord, and then use a combination of passing notes. So the passing notes are the other notes in the scale that don't build up the chord. So just a little bit of basic music theory, and now let's get into the chords themselves. So we're going to take those 3 notes and build a combination of chords out of them. And there's 3 shapes we're going to talk about, and then I'll show you how to move it around to different keys. So the first one is going to start with the root note in the low register, okay? And remember, we're playing just 3 notes, 1, 3, and 5. You can add 4th finger versions for all these, and I'll show you how to do that briefly. But for this lesson, we're just going to focus on 3 finger chords, okay? So our first one, we're going to bar the 2nd fret with our 1st finger, 2 and 2. And then I'm going to use my 3rd finger and put it on the 4th fret. So you can strum. And that chord is 1, 5, 3. So we have A, C, or A, E, excuse me, E, and then C sharp. And if you want, you might have done this full bar chord version with your pinky up on the 5th fret. That'd be like the 4-finger version of that, but let's just focus on 3 fingers for now. Again, I think it helps to understand that the chords are built from 3 notes if you just play the 3-finger version, okay? So that's 1, 5, 3 are my notes there. So A, E, C sharp. Again, you can strum. You could try some cross picking, or do 3 downs, or change strings in 3, excuse me. So I'd be doing down, up, down, up, down. Or you can do down, up, down, up. And that's good practice. The other thing I'll do there is I drop my thumb down to help squeeze a little bit. And that just takes some practice. You know, you can kind of do the string test, just play them each one at a time. And just keep, you know, get it down until it sounds good. And that'll take a little bit of practice, you know, relax the pressure, shake your hand out if you need to, but just practice that. The other thing we can do with that, and just another little music theory tip, is if we modify the 3rd, if we flatten the 3rd. So it's always good to remember the notes and which one is, in this case, the root's the low note. In this case, our 3rd note is the high sounding note. So if I drop my 3rd a half step, if I flatten the 3rd, that's how you get a minor chord. So again, you might have done this like A minor, so you got A major and A minor. So again, if you remember that, okay, I can modify the 3rd to make it a major minor chord, then all you have to do is remember this one shape, and then you can make that modification in real time. You don't have to remember 2 different versions. So if you remember flatten the 3rd will give me a minor chord, that's an easy way to remember it. So, okay, so practice that. You know, what I would do is just you know, do some basic strumming. You can do a chop. You know, at first I wouldn't really worry about what rhythm you're doing. I would just worry about getting some good tone out of the chords. So the next shape up